In China, that's a thing called social credit. It's your behavior. It's so how it works is it's a social behavior in life. How you talk to the government, how you interfere with this, if you jaywalk or you litter or anything, then your credit score go down, your social credit score go down, and it can stop you for like traveling, going here and going there, being shamed by society, all kinds of stuff. So what I'm saying to you is, they're trying to introduce it into the United States under this Great Reset. That I won't say it, President Trump wasn't having, but Joe Biden is having. It's called the Great Reset. Let me get back to the point though. So what they're doing is they're trying to align big business with this. So the banks and everything, if you I'm not gonna explain it. It's the banks, the banks, because it stop you from getting loans, stop you from having stuff. If they believe you don't fit in to the social credit in society now, it's a big. It's getting dangerous. It's getting real, people. It's getting real. So, excuse me. Excuse me. I'll show. Let you listen to this man talk. Matter of fact, hold on for a minute. Hold on. Matter of fact, I'm gonna play a little bit on. Hold up. China social credit.
Here's a summary from Wikipedia. The social credit system is a national blacklist being developed by the government of the People's Republic of China.
Like I said, a blacklist. So, you, your behavior could put you on that blacklist. You still happy you voted for Joe, Kamala, the Democrats? You still believe that was the right choice? I'll play a video for you.
There was a story going around a couple of, it might have been months ago at this point, about China's social credit score and how they were ranking people based on certain metrics to see how good of a citizen they were, and then punishing them likewise if they were a bad citizen. Well, we thought it was going to be a while before a system like that came to the United States, but here we are. So we're going to talk about that and a little bit more on this little segment of Stopping Socialism TV. But before we do, I have to go out there and say this again, that we need your help to spread this information around. YouTube, Google, Facebook, they're not doing us any favors. They're actually hampering us nowadays. So we need you to share this stuff, like this stuff, follow us on our pages, do all the stuff that helps our information get out there. It really, really does a lot of help for us. But yeah, social credit scores, ESG scores, where do we start on this one, Justin?
Well, the interesting thing about ESG standards is it sounds very, esoteric and boring and, who cares and what is this about? But in reality, this is like a really crazy, almost, it's a totally dystopian 1984 kind of concept, right? Essentially, the idea behind a social credit score is, and this is already being rolled out in China, okay? The idea is give people a score, give citizens of a society a score that helps people understand where they fall in society as good citizens or bad citizens. And then in China, they're going to reward you with a variety of different things, economic advantages, job advantages, etc., based on your social credit score. So if you do something that's bad, like, say, jaywalk or, drive drunk or something, like, you're not only going to pay some kind of a punishment, in terms of a fine or whatever, but you're also going to get a hit on your social credit score because you're not as good of a citizen as someone who doesn't jaywalk, right? Now, obviously, you can see how this could easily turn into something terrifying, especially in a country like China, right? Because it could be something as simple as, you said something bad about the Communist
Yeah.
Party.
You visited websites that have some
Yeah.
misinformation about the
Exactly.
Communist Party, right?
Exactly. And so that's where things get really terrifying from China's perspective. Now, all right, in the United States, what does this have to do with us here in the United States? We don't have a social credit score here. Well, it's true that the government doesn't have a social credit score, but one thing that people need to understand, it's part of this whole Great Reset movement that's going on right now among world leaders at the World Economic Forum and giant banks and financial institutions and corporations and others, is this movement towards ESG scores. ESG is essentially a social credit system. It stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance Standards. That's what ESG is. And what this is often applied to businesses. Businesses, corporations are usually the ones that are voluntarily putting these scores into place because I think they believe in the long run there's going to be all sorts of financial incentives from the government and elsewhere, banks, financial institutions, etc., built into the system, and that they want to have this ESG system because they see the writing on the wall and they know that they want to have good ESG scores. And ESG scores are really, in the same way that social credit scores are in China, are meant to say who's a good citizen, who's a bad citizen. ESG scores are meant to say who's a good company and who's a bad company. It's not based on how much money you make. It's not based on how good your services are. It's not based on how well you treat your employees necessarily. Those are all part of it. But it's also those things plus a whole bunch of left-wing causes, like, how many, for example, Coca-Cola recently in their annual report put out that one of their metrics that they're using to measure themselves is what percentage of their management across the entire world, Coca-Cola is a massive company, right, is women. What percentage is women? And their goal is to have at least 50% women in management. Right now they have like 20-something%. And so in order to meet that standard, they're putting a disproportionately high number of women in their management program in order to ensure that they get to that 50% number, right? And so this is part of their ESG score. That's
and it's just latent with global warming type rhetoric and social activism and different wokeness. That's all part of this ESG scores.
Right, and it could be anything. That's the point. It could be anything. That's what it is right now. It's mostly global warming and how many women you have and racial proportion of different racial groups within your business and pollution and all sorts of things like that. But it could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It could be, what proportion of your company has people in it who are, say belong to racist or dangerous organizations or political groups. It could be anything at all.
Sure. Yeah, does a banking institution have any ties, any gun manufacturing and stuff? Like, you could see the implications that could run against the First and Second Amendment, and it's kind of worrisome because this isn't based on any law. This is like just these ESG things that are conjured up.
How great is it that we get to tell everybody how liberty
Economic Forum and different international organizations like that.
And they believe, and we believe, that over the long run, it will become part of the government in some fashion as well, where they're going to say, okay, well, you want a bailout? Well, we're not going to give you a bailout if you've got, if you're discriminatory against women because you don't have enough women in management. And so all these big companies are seeing that, and they're preparing for it. And they know that it's coming either from the government or from banks. Could be central banks, which in a lot of places are not accountable to government. Like here in the United States, the Fed kind of just does whatever it wants. Maybe the Fed says, you know what? We're only going to give money out now to parts of the economy that have ESG scores. If you don't have an ESG score, we're not giving you any money. And so
or over a certain threshold, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's all part of the system. So what is this that we're talking about right now? What are you seeing on your screen if you're watching a video? This is truly amazing stuff right here. This comes from an actual person here who works at the Heartland Institute with us, with Donald and I. He called me up on the phone one day and said, you've been talking about all these ESG scores and stuff. And he said, I logged into my Merrill Lynch investment account and I got a notice saying that I've got an ESG score. And I said, you must be confused. No. I've done an ESG score.
Yeah.
And he shows me this
Yeah, he sends the screenshot.
that you're seeing right here, and he does in fact have an ESG score.
Not a good global citizen, just by the looks of it.
He's not. His overall ESG score, which is based on what, you may be wondering. Well, this is an investment account from Merrill Lynch, which is, obviously a big investments like Fidelity or one of these other companies that people go to invest in. And he's got some investments in this. 401ks might be in there, that kind of thing. And based on his investments, all those investments have ESG scores, all those companies. And what they did was they looked at all the companies he's invested in that have ESG scores, and then they gave him an ESG score for his accounts that's an aggregate of all these accounts that have ESG scores, so he can see where he stands. And it says here, his environmental score is 6 out of 10. His social score is 4.7 out of 10. It's really bad. His governance score is 4.6 out of 10. His overall ESG score is 4.7 out of 10, which is slightly below average, it says here. So, what does this really mean? It says it right here on this thing. We can just read it off. What does this really mean? It says here, investors are increasingly interested in portfolios that support their values. Interesting. Without sacrificing returns. Well, that's very interesting.
It's crazy. Sorry, my arm's getting tired. That's why I kept on dropping the phone and everything. But you could start a business, and the government could and the banks could bankrupt you because they tied with the government too, because you won't have enough. Whatever, it could be anything. Well, you ain't got enough. Don't matter if they qualified or not, but you ain't got enough of that race or that group or anything working in that establishment. So they could just, well, it don't matter if they qualify. It don't matter if they could do the job. You just don't have enough of them in there. And like I said, the First and Second Amendment rights, they attack it. So they are trying to. So let's think about it. If you go to church, religion, but you know what? The First Amendment right is so many. The right to free speech, the right to the press, the right to protest. It's a whole bunch of stuff in the First Amendment. If they feel like it's a certain organization they feel like it's one of them need to be attacked. You part of an organization that represent free speech, represent the right to protest, or I can't think of it's a whole bunch of them in the First Amendment. They could attack you, and they could squeeze you out financially. It could squeeze you out so there's no limits to it. So they don't like what you're doing. They just this what BLM, LeBron James, Snoop Dogg, P Diddy, D.L. Hughley. Let me think of somebody else. T.I. What's that girl? What's that lady name? Cardi B. And a whole bunch of these other people that push this Black Lives Matter. They got this man in office. And you could put the blame with them for the Great Reset, for the stuff that's going on right now. Because they said they want to reconstruct America, a new America. So you want the new America to be like China? Someone like China? Oh, the new America global. It's a global way of China. That's what they're trying to push. The global way of China. Oh, we losing our people that have. Oh, you don't like capitalism? Oh, Okay, you forget a taste of it the other side in a minute. Is to keep on going through. If you like what's going on in China when the people was protesting, well, people in China, the citizens don't even like what's going on over there. Because they can't do nothing. Y'all just don't understand. People just fail to appreciate freedom. People fail to appreciate, and people just get so brainwashed in these political movements. You don't even know what they represent. Don't even know what they following. Y'all follow, not y'all. Two people talking about you follow Black Lives Matter, BLM, and they led you to destruction. That take a knee. A global credit score is coming, and they could take they ain't gotta take away the Constitution no more. They can squeeze out of you financially. You heard what I said? Oh, you can fight for the Constitution. They ain't gotta take the Constitution no more. They can squeeze out you financially through the base. They can break up your company. Get the money the individual own. You don't need them people no more. You need to do something, but you gotta wake up. Quit sleeping.